Corey to me. And that's when I was 3 years old. I had this wooden rocking horse. It was, about 3 feet tall. And when my mom got Corey home from the hospital and into his nursery, she hears me dragging it down the hallway into there. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Mom, I'm going to give this to Corey, and when he's old enough, I'm going to teach him how to ride it." So clearly, I've always been the cuter of the two. Honestly, this would be a poetic start to the best day in a speech where I talk about how I taught Corey everything that he knows and all that good stuff. But up until the time that I wrote this, I honestly didn't really think that was the case. I didn't feel like I taught him a whole lot growing up. But one thing I could think of that I really did teach him growing up was when I was getting in trouble in high school. I didn't realize that Corey was in the corner strenuously taking notes because he did everything that I got in trouble for in high school, but he never got caught. It wasn't until Corey's senior year of high school that he found out that when he finally did get caught, I was going to be there to take care of him and make sure that nothing bad happened. So, Corey's on spring break. This is kind of a long story, but Corey's on spring break this year. The first night that he's there, my phone rings about 10 p.m. So I'm thinking in true Schneider fashion. He's had a couple crowded nights and he just wants to call and talk my ear off for like an hour or two. So I pick up the phone and I say, "Hey Corey," and he goes, "Hey Dad," and I said, at this point I'm thinking, okay, he thinks that he called my dad. He just wants to talk to him for a little while. So I said, "No, this is your brother." He goes, "Yeah, Dad. Can you talk to this police officer for me? Tell him that it's okay to release me to my friends." My immediate thought was, okay, now it's my turn to get back for all the stories I had to hear on telling Mom when we were growing up. But lucky enough for him, I loved him a little bit more than that, so I didn't try that. I talked to the police officer for probably like 5 minutes, and I finally convinced her that I was indeed my father. So she asked for my driver's license number, and this is the only reason that my mom ever found out about this. I had my driver's license number memorized, and she thought that it was a fake driver's license, and Corey did also. So when she got off the phone, she told Corey that she was going to run it, and if it's fake, she's taking him to jail. So she kind of forced his hand and ended up having to call my mom. So I'm thinking everything's fine. 5 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's my mom, and she's pissed off at me. Now, I'd like to recap the last story for anyone, or the last couple minutes of the story for anyone who wasn't listening. I lied to a police officer to make sure her son didn't go to jail, but I'm the one that's in trouble. So, my mom's plan was to drive down to Florida, embarrass him in front of all of his friends, and drive him back up to Indianapolis. And I convinced her that, no, we shouldn't do that. It's not that big of a deal. He's not actually in jail, so everything's fine. And she said that she would do that under the one stipulation that he wasn't allowed to drink for the rest of the time that he was on spring break. And I'm sure you can say the true word on that one? Yes. Okay, like I was saying, Corey and I were really close growing up. It wasn't until he was about 22 years old that we really started getting close. And unfortunately for me, that was right around the time he moved down here. So I helped him move down. We got a moving truck and all that good stuff. And I moved him into his apartment. And to be honest, from the minute that he got here, he was counting down the time until he came back to Indianapolis. He didn't like it at all. He didn't know anybody when he came out here. But lucky for him, he met Ahmad. And I say this because if it weren't for Ahmad, we wouldn't be standing here today. Because Ahmad invited Corey to go scout tickets with him to a UT game. And it was at that UT game that he sat next to Miss Julie Myers here at Schneider. Yeah. So at the time, Julie had a boyfriend, and I'm sure she found Corey strikingly handsome and everything, but she had course. So he was talking to her the entire time, and he came up with this plan that in order to get her phone number, he was going to invite her and her friends to a party that he was never actually going to have. So he asked to use her phone and typed his number into it, but in reality, all he was doing was calling his phone so that he could have her phone number. And to this day, she's still in his phone as Julie from the game. Apparently, he knew a lot of Julie. So I'm not sure how he did it, but he eventually tricked Julie into going out with him. And I was going around during the whole dating process when they first started dating. But I knew that when I heard that my dad was going to meet Julie before any of us, that it had to be serious, because up until that point, my dad seriously never even hardly met her before his girlfriends, and he was going to meet her before anyone else did. So that was obviously a big deal. And I didn't realize how, just how serious it was until I came down here to help Corey and Julie move in together. And for those of you who have never had the absolute pleasure of helping Corey move, he's the biggest pain in the ass in the entire world. And up until that point, I thought that I was the only one who possibly tolerated him for that. But Julie has been able to put up with him through two moves now, so clearly she loves him. I followed Corey down to Austin about a year after that, and I have honestly never met anybody as accommodating as Julie was when I moved here. She always made sure that I wasn't sitting at home by myself and moving around, and she invited me over to her apartment for what we started calling family dinners every Sunday. Before I moved here, I'd always heard that girls in Texas are raised just a little bit differently than anywhere else, and I can say from firsthand experience that Julie is for sure one of those people. So, Mr. and Mrs. Myers, I would just like to thank you for raising such a beautiful daughter. And I'm proud of that. Okay, here's the pros and cons, so bear with me. I just wanted to mention two very important people that aren't able to be here. Aren't able to be here. Did I say something funny? Okay. Corey's a good friend of fraternity brother Kyle Simcoe, passed away in May of 2009, and it's very likely that I'm actually standing in his spot right now. I didn't know Kyle very well, but talking to some of his friends, and really what I gather is that he was the kindest and most selfless friend that Corey's ever had, and I know that he has to be up looking down on us today with a smile on his face, but probably wondering how the hell the wedding colors are black and gold instead of green and crimson. Alright, I'm supposed to talk about my dad right now, but we saw how that worked out last time. I'll just say that he would have been here, and he would probably be holding a crown and die with that smile that everybody knew him for on his face, and probably shouting out his favorite phrase, "Life is good." So, alright, if I can get everybody to raise their glasses. Raise their glasses for the beautiful couple, Corey, Julie. I love you guys very much. I'm so happy to have you in my life. And I will always be there for you. And I'm very excited to see what the future holds for you. Congratulations.
Bye, Groom.